Our next speaker, Janelle. She is known as the complaint lady. For decades, she has received complaints from her family and from people in her audiences. She was once told that she was too tall to be a speaker. And as she's aging, she's working on that complaint. She says she wants to shift your mindset about complaints by sharing with you 3 myths about complaints and complaint handling that get in the way of retaining customers, which all of us in business want to keep, correct? Now, she knows what she's talking about. She is the author of a best-selling book, A Complaint is a Gift. It has sold over 300,000 copies, and the ideas in her books have been adopted by the standard of the mindset for hundreds and hundreds of organizations in dozens of industries. And this is around the world. She's working on the 3rd edition of A Complaint is a Gift, published by Barrett Kohler. It's been completely rewritten and expanded, and she gives her thanks to the pandemic for giving her the time to do that. Help me welcome Janelle.
Boy, she wrote that better, she read that better than I wrote it. That's for sure. Did you know that today is National Complaints Day? Did you know that?
No.
Actually, it's not. I just made that up. It's not. But I saw some of you starting to reach for your phones to see if it really was and what we should do with National Complaints Day. I think it would be great if we could fall in love with complaints on this day. I'm a firm believer in the power and the positive aspects to complaints. Some of you may have been thinking, well, maybe we should have fewer complaints on National Complaints Day, or at least they shouldn't be so nasty as they frequently tend to get. And that's a possibility for National Complaints Day as well. But if you were thinking that what we should have is fewer complaints, I'd like to tell you that that's really probably not such a good idea. Very, very few people complain. Did you know that? I mean, you probably think, oh my God, everybody complains all the time, but actually we don't. The research that's been done over 30 years suggests that about 96% of the time, people don't complain. 96% of the time about small things to somebody who can do something about them. We just keep quiet and walk away. If it's something big, we complain at a slightly higher rate. If you buy a brand new car and you take it home and the wheels fall off, well, yes, you're probably going to complain about that. But even then, the numbers are dismal. It's at 23% of people will complain about that. That's all. We're really not very good complainers. You know, we've been learning since we were small children to not complain. We were told that if you're complaining, you're a whiner, or you're nasty, or whatever, all these names that we give to people who complain a lot. Now, I personally think that we've just got to change some of these attitudes. John Goodman, who is perhaps the person who's most well known for his research on complaint, he's better at it than just about anybody. John Goodman says that if you write a letter or you put it on an email or you put it online, that only 1 in 3,000 of those communications will get to somebody at the top level of the organization to do something about it. 1 in 3,000. So I think we need a National Complaints Day. Yeah. We need to know how to give them, and we need to know how to receive them. Now, I personally think that complaints are gifts. That's my belief. I've come to that point some time ago. Complaints do this for us. They tell businesses what they want, and businesses might otherwise not know that. And they do it for free. People don't charge you for their complaints. And so you're getting this free information which otherwise would cost you for marketing materials. Complaints also enable you to turn that customer around so that they will become more connected to you. That happens in over 25% of most cases. People feel better about you after they've had a complaint. So we should all just keep encouraging for more complaints. Complaints also let you identify who are your loyal customers. Because if somebody is not loyal to you, they're not going to complain. You know what they'll do? They'll just say, forget it, and they'll leave, and they'll go away. So they identify your loyal customers, and those are the ones that you want to take care of. And finally, complaints are gifts because they're still talking with you. They're not out there telling a million other people online or in person how bad you are when you can't defend yourself. And do you think they ever exaggerate? Oh yeah, they lie. And they remember events from 30 years ago, and they'll tell you about those. So in my mind, complaints are gifts. But people don't complain. So it's an interesting question. Why don't we complain? Now I have here a copy of the second edition of A Complaint is a Gift. Third edition isn't out yet. And I'm going to give it to the first person who can raise their hand and tell me the number one reason you think why people don't complain. Okay, we got an answer back there. Let's see, what is it?
Because they don't think the other person will care.
They don't think the other person will care. That's a really good answer. It's close, but it's not quite there. Anybody else want to try?
We don't.
It won't make a difference.
It won't make a difference, yeah. That's the number one reason. So maybe I have a complaint and I look at Gail and I say, she's not going to do anything, so do you think I'm going to complain to her? No, I'm just going to go away and tell everybody else about it. That's the number one reason. Caring was real close, but not quite there. The second reason why people don't complain is a bit more complicated. But I think if you think your way through this, there are literally hundreds of reasons, you know, that why people don't complain. This is consistently shows up at the top of the list. Somebody raises their hand, they get a copy of this book. Okay, what do you think?
They get labeled, they think they will get labeled as a whiner, as a complainer?
Okay, they think they'll get labeled as a whiner or a complainer. I'm going to accept that as the answer. It's that something bad is going to happen to me. And that the bad thing is I'm going to be labeled as a whiner. Congratulations. You got that on the first try. Generally, it takes groups many, many, many tries to come to that. I mean, think about it. If you're in a restaurant and you have food and it's not quite prepared the way that you want it, are you going to complain? Or does it cross your mind that perhaps they'll do something to that food in the kitchen? And you know what? I've talked with plenty of chefs and people who work in kitchens, and they do. Just as a little warning. If you're in a bank and you want a loan, and that you don't have that loan yet, are you going to complain to the bank about their service before you get the loan or after you get the loan? Yeah, for sure, because they might not give it to you if you complain before. Or if you're a parent and you have a child in school and that child, and the teacher complains, or you want to complain to the teacher about that child, are you going to do that? Probably not, because you're afraid of what they might do to your child. Complaints are not easy. They're uncomfortable, and most of us really don't like them. And so what we do is we buy into these myths about complaint handling that actually make the situation worse. For example, the first myth is that if I complain, I don't have to go out and train people because I can just bring people in off the street because everybody's had so many complaints in their lives that they actually know how to handle complaints well. Well, that's just not quite how it works. For those of you who have children, when children complain to each other, and they're yelling at each other, "Mom, look what Buddy called me," and then the mother says, "Well, stand up for yourself," or she makes Buddy apologize, and she says to Buddy, "Tell your brother that you're sorry." And how does Buddy do that? Yeah, he says, sorry. And that's how you get that kind of a sorry from complaint handlers as well. Sorry. Well, I said I was sorry. I said it. Yeah, you did, but you didn't mean it. That's the number one, that's the number one myth, is that we can just bring these people into our organization and we won't have to worry about their ability to handle complaints. But people get defensive. If you're a speaker and somebody says to you, "You know, I don't like what you said," and nobody in the audience understood what you said, are you likely to be very open-minded towards that person? Probably you're going to get defensive, and none of that works. So that's one of the myths that we buy into. And believe me, companies buy into that big time. The second myth is that if all I do is just give the person what they want, they'll walk away satisfied. No way. All that does is take them back to how they felt when they were first buying the product. What you've got to do is to deal with the emotions around that, what happened. And if you don't do that, people will walk away with your product and they won't feel satisfied. They won't become your loyal customer. It's a big mistake to think that just we can buy our customers off. It's just not going to happen. The third reason, or the third myth, and it's my favorite one of all. Actually, I've got dozens of these myths, but this is my third. I've only got time for 3, so my third reason is, the third myth is this, and that is that we should set targets to reduce complaints. Makes a certain amount of sense, huh? Mm-hmm. I've had so many heads of companies say to me, Janelle, I know you believe that complaints are gifts, and the book gives them a hint. I know you believe that, but really, we don't want any complaints at all. We want 0 complaints. I find this a very interesting answer. And so I say to them, well, how are you going to prevent that? And they kind of look around, because that's a deep question. And they say, well, we won't have any mistakes. Fat chance of that. We're living on planet Earth. I've heard so many managers say this to me, and I say to them, imagine that you're a manager of a hotel and you've got a big swimming pool, and some people like cold water when they swim. I'm a long-distance swimmer, and that's my preference. And then you've got the people who treat swimming pools as places to stand and have conversations with other people. They want warmer water. Now tell me this, how do you keep adjusting the temperature of the pool to make it work for everyone? You just can't do it. And that's what we have to deal with. I remember one manager in particular who said to me, he said, we paid a big price for this. His face had turned rather white at that point. He said, we actually paid money to people when their complaint levels went down. And guess what? They did. Because what the staff began to do was not report the complaints, or they would say, that really wasn't a complaint, that was a compliment. Or all they really wanted to know was an answer to a question. It wasn't a complaint. Or they will say, they were nasty, or they were stupid, or they were trying to cheat us, and so I didn't have to treat that as a complaint. And he said what happened was they began to lose customers at a very fast rate because they were not getting feedback about some of the products that needed to be taken care of. He said it was the most costly mistake we ever made. That's my third myth. Now, we don't like complaints. Basically, we don't. We don't. I mean, if somebody asks me, do you like complaints? Well, I wrote the book, so I have to say yes, I do. But actually, none of us really like negative feedback in any great way. We just don't. But what we can do is to learn to treat this feedback as a gift for the reasons that I have cited. And then maybe things will work out. If we began to see a complaint as a gift, the first thing we would do is we would say, thank you. Thank you for giving me that information. And then you might apologize because it happened. You could say, I'm so sorry that that happened. I'm so sorry that that happened. It's not our quality standard. And then the third thing that you would probably do is you would fix that problem as quickly as possible. And if we all did that, then when we have National Complaints Day, we could all celebrate. Thank you very much.